Good day, everyone. I'm Julie Livingston, and I'm here for another edition of Quorum Live, our regular series of conversations with Quorum members and friends about hot topics that are affecting women in the workplace. If you're new to the Quorum Initiative, we are an organization composed of female leaders and next-gen leaders who are seeking to create change and more opportunity for women to advance in the workplace, to secure more investment in women-owned and led companies, and to see more female representation on corporate boards. So join us and help all women create positive change in the workplace. I am delighted to have a special guest with me today. Please welcome Christine Sandman Stone. She pairs a master's degree in management and organizational behavior, which really gives her such phenomenal insights. And she has deep experience in technology, product, and engineering operations, working with elite brands that you know very well: Dell, McDonald's, Volkswagen, Groupon, and a large community of tech startups. She's a sought after speaker, trusted advisor to organizations and leaders, and especially women, and a mentor to hundreds of working professionals. Her transformational and pragmatic guidance really drives results at scale. And the name of her company is Deliver at Scale. Like other people track their steps, Christine tracks the number of people that she helps to get promotions, opportunities, new jobs, and raises. So your mission, Christine, is very much in alignment with Quorum to make women's voices heard, to help us raise our own voices. Her latest book is The Modern Management Mentor. Let's see that book, Christine. Next Level Tools for Managers, which is available now on Amazon and is a bestseller already. We're going to talk about her book in a moment. But Christine, why don't we get started by you sharing a little bit more of your backstory?
Certainly. First of all, I'm so excited to be here with a dynamic community of women leaders and emerging leaders. I deeply believe that policies in our companies and in our country and in the world will be better with more of us at the table. And data shows that when we are at the table, our organizations are more profitable as well. So I'm really excited to be here. I love that Julie kind of laid out for you. I've had 35 years in tech and the master's degree in organizational behavior. And the brand that I've built through my experience in this work is one of my favorite bosses called me the queen of getting shit done. And that tag has kind of followed me every place that I've gone. I am better than anyone else at figuring out the most efficient, specific way to accomplish something and measure it. And I do my best when I'm working with leaders and organizations that are delivering at a new scale. They need to figure out the fastest way to get the best results and get the best out of their people. I love my work, and I'm deeply grateful to be here with you all today.
So, Christine, I mean, you've held senior roles at major U.S. companies. What were some of the issues that you noticed among managers and newly promoted managers that led to your aha moment? What did you see that was missing for them?
So I think most managers don't really get training at all. We get pointed toward an internal website and we're told this is where, you should read some things about
Right.
one-on-ones or here's some videos to watch. I got training in my career and I got amazing training, but it fell into two categories. At Volkswagen, I was part of the management development program, and there I learned about things like Myers-Briggs and what my profile is, and how my profile is 3% of the US population. So I needed to adjust so I'd be successful with the other 97% of the people that I'd be working with. So great theory, right? And then at McDonald's, I was part of the leadership development program, which was exceptional. They taught me things like how to tell a story in front of a large group so that you could get all of your team behind a critical initiative. Deeply valuable, deeply inspirational. So we've got theory and inspiration, But when I was asked by a young manager to recommend a book that could help her be successful in her first year, I realized like, and the last thing she needs is a book on theory or a book on inspiration. She just needs to get stuff done like right away. She needs to come in solid. And she'd been an exceptional contributor. So now she's being asked to take that excellence into leading a team, and they're very different. So my aha moment was, good heavens, I've read hundreds of management books, and there's great stuff out there that inspires you and gives you the theory of humans, but the practical delivery is a gap.
Yeah, I noticed the same thing when I in my corporate career, that they're really, sometimes when you join an organization and you're pretty much on your own,
Yeah,
unless they have a robust onboarding program, and some companies do now, and they are smart enough to start implementing that from the moment, for in the interview process.
right.
But somehow or another, a little down the road, they drop the ball, and their managers are kind of left fending for themselves. And why not power them up?
Right. Oh, there's so much to be gained. I was talking to a couple of chief people officers of all things just this past week, and we were talking about someone asked, how were you as a manager when you first started? And all three of us started laughing. And then we just shared stories about ways that we'd messed up in the first year. And we were like, oh my gosh, the second time I did Talent Roundtable, I was so much better at it. The second time I had to give tough feedback. So there's such opportunity for companies and organizations and for us as developing or as leaders to close that gap quickly, and especially to help women do really well when they get the opportunity to lead, because all of us know that data shows that we don't get as much of an opportunity to lead as white men do. For every 100 white men, 87 white women get the opportunity, 82 women of color get the opportunity. So this is a great place for us, either as people who manage managers or as people who are managers, to really accelerate and close that gap, which should close the gap in our wealth generation, leadership, and influence on policy as well.
And there are so many long-term effects of this kind of
Yeah,
professional development. I mean,
absolutely.
it's got to it's got to affect talent attraction and talent retention, don't you
Right.
think?
I do. I do. And I want to talk about something else. When we build the talent pipeline inside of our own organizations, it's a far more cost-effective way to bring leaders in. If you look at recruitment costs and sign-on bonuses and things like that to bring external talent in, it's a real asset for us as leaders inside of organizations when we're able to create our own, farm club that we can pull from and build strength.
No, that's great. So I mean, look, COVID definitely
Ooh,
changed the game for so
yeah.
much. What happened? Just remind us what happened during COVID,
I
and
love
how
it.
did this affect newly promoted managers and up and coming leaders?
Boy. So I'm kind of an optimist, and I can see upsides. On the positive side, COVID accelerated an understanding that remote work could actually be effective. It forced minds to open up about remote structures, and then it started to create opportunities for us where teams weren't limited to like a co-located office. We were able to pull talent from different parts of the organization in order to get things done. So there was a lot of really interesting stuff that happened, and managers who used to be kind of lazy and just like see if their people were in the office now actually had to focus on the work that was getting done, and we became outcomes focused. That's the positive side of COVID. And I think a lot of organizations tried remote work who would have never tried it for another 5 or 10 years. So that's a positive. On the negative, we were all just surviving, right? We had
Yeah,
businesses in crisis, we had communities in crisis, employees in crisis, and so we all went to this tactical, what do I need to do to get things taken care of this week? And we also kind of pivoted as managers to how do I take care of people?
I
That
was
was the
just going to say that.
number
The
one
whole,
priority, right?
I mean, COVID just turned everything upside down, and the
Good.
whole mental health and caring for team members really came to the fore.
But you know what muscles atrophied? Delivery. We
Ah,
we all took care of our people. We all survived the crisis. And now we have a lot of people who've been promoted or who were even managers during, and they need to reset. I was running a workshop for senior leaders inside of a tech company that had just had a 20% layoff. And these folks they're brilliant. And I would say the age range was 45 to 62 in this group. And what was fascinating was they all were asking me, Christine, how do I reset? The organization is now saying you've got to drive accountability. You've got to figure people out who are reporting to you, never reported to you before, though you've all been with the company a long time. They said, how do I drive accountability? I've been using one-on-ones to be supportive, to make certain that we didn't lose talent as we went through this tough spot. And we talked about how they could adapt some of their tools and tactics to work now. So everyone's rebuilding the delivery muscle right now, is my
Yeah.
opinion.
No, yeah, I think you're right on. So, what is the best way for up and coming leaders to get promoted today,
Yep.
especially women?
Oh my heavens. I have a
Is
story.
it all, I mean, is it all based in office politics? Like, how are you've had such great
Right.
insights about what you need to do and say to move up the ladder.
Right. You have to tell your story because stories stick in people's minds. There's a great example I heard of a number of years ago where a group of women who were all brokers inside of an organization would have lunch every month together. And the reason that they had lunch was because each of them was the only woman on their respective teams. So they got together for community and support. One of the lunches was right after all the promotions had come out and none of the women had been promoted. And this was a pattern that had been going on for a long time. And they were talking about it and they were worried about it. And one woman said, I went to my boss and I said, what the heck? My numbers surpassed everyone else's on the teams. I should have been part of that promotion list.
Mm,
And he said, you're right. I told all your stories, but in the room, when other people's names came up, multiple people were telling their stories, and it just seemed like those other candidates had more support. And he said, I'm so sorry. So then the women were like, wait a minute, like men brag a lot and we'll never close that gap because that's a really an uncomfortable place for us. And the woman who ran the lunch was listening and she said, okay, we're doing this differently. From now on, the price of admission to come to this lunch is you have to bring one story from the past month of something that you've done that you're proud of.
right.
All of us are going to write down each other's stories, and then each of us commits to telling 3 people's stories in the next month. We'll find a way. If somebody says, hey, Christine, how's your day going? I'll say, great. I just got off Quorum Live with Julie. I don't know if you've ever met her before. I love how she prepares and structures things. We would tell each other stories. So the next promotion cycle, 50% of the promotions were women. So I'm confidently telling everyone on this call, you've got to tell your story. You have to be able to explain how your work supports the business outcomes, and you need to use data elements to tell it. And you have to share those with other people so that when the talent roundtable happens, you've got multiple sponsors inside of that room who are going to be able to tell different and strong stories about you. I think it boils down to storytelling. And you asked about politics. I think politics has like a negative connotation. So I'm going to flip your word.
Okay.
Yes, it boils down to people. How many people want to support you, believe in you, and can tell your stories? You've got to make certain
Yeah.
that you've built a base of fans and
I
sponsors.
and what about sponsors? What about the role of a sponsor?
So gosh, I wish I learned this earlier. I heard a brilliant woman named Carla Harris speak, and she said, you have to know the difference between mentors and sponsors, and they're absolutely not the same. Your mentor is who you tell the good, the bad, and the ugly. They're who we go to when we doubt ourselves, when we're having a down day, when we're frustrated. Your sponsor is a person who gets you promotions, new jobs, opportunities, bonuses, raises. And you tell your mentor the good, the bad, and the ugly, and you tell your sponsor the good, and the good. And she said the point is that your sponsor needs to be able to repeat your story with absolute confidence that you are ready for the next role. And if they've helped you work through problems, they might say, you know what? I think Christine's brilliant, but she's not ready yet. So don't ever let your sponsors, and the most important sponsor you have
Mm,
is your manager, don't let them hear the doubts, the frustrations, the concerns. You
Right,
take
so be careful, be cognizant of when you're
absolutely.
complaining or
Well, and I thought that it was important to bring my whole self to my manager to share with them my problems. And I realized later, like, nope, I should have been telling them about how well everything was going. And later in my career, I learned that my best mentors have been from outside my organization. They have,
I think that's true. I think that's such a smart
yeah,
idea
it's a
because
game
then they
changer.
have a fresh perspective.
Yes. And they're a safe person for me to, maybe curse a little bit, cry a little bit, share my frustration with somebody. They can help me reset and just go back and show my strong, fierce self.
Yeah. No, this is such sound advice. Do you think that up and coming leaders are being given the tools to lead their teams and create a sense of belonging and connection? It seems that feeling that connection to the organization, being part of something of a community
Yep.
is really important for people today, especially those who are working hybrid or fully remote.
I I think a lot of companies are trying, but I think the short answer is no. And the best example of that is you hear these conversations about return to office, and you've got these CEOs who are forcing a return to office, but they're not thinking through what the work is that needs to get done and what the role is of the office in that ecosystem. If you've got a lot of folks coming back in to have a team meeting that could have very easily been had over a Zoom, or to review content that could have very easily been shared asynchronously and effectively, you've got folks potentially, I live in Chicago. A one-way commute for a lot of people is 90 minutes to 2 hours. And you have folks losing those hours that they could be using in a more productive way, just to be in the office. And when they get to the office, they close a door, turn on a Zoom meeting, and get to work with teams. So
Which they could do at home.
they could do at home. I think technologies are being underutilized. There's some great technologies for building teams, and I think that managers honestly need guidance. They need to be told what some ideas are, what some tools are, and some guidance about when the office is an asset.
Yeah, I agree. I think that, the CEOs who are so adamant about having people in the office all the time are just not paying attention to the shifts that have occurred since COVID. And it is a real talent retention tool and attraction tool. I
It's
mean,
huge. I,
people have can make different choices now about where they work, how they work.
yep.
And it just shows, I think, when management shows that they've been listening and following what people want and where they're happiest and most productive, they have to kind of take that into consideration.
I was at this fascinating salon of leaders in Chicago who were all chatting about the modern office. And a head of HR for a very large organization said, when we have a posting and it's mandatory in office, I will get 2 candidates who might respond. I will
Wow.
get 200 for a hybrid posting. So she said, I've really been working with my leaders to say, you have to decide how important this is for you, because it changes your pipeline options.
Wow. Really interesting. So, Christine, tell us about your book
Huh.
and what, what led you to write it, and tell us about your co-author.
Lovely. So the book, my co-author is right here. It's my oldest daughter, Madeline, and I give her advice. I am her modern management mentor. I mentor a lot of people. I give her advice, and one of the pieces of advice I'd given her was, look, apply for management roles, even if it says previous management experience needed, because you've been leading these large technology teams for 7 years. You know how to get people to get stuff done. So yes, if they say, have you managed a team, just say yes. So she called me and she said, good news, bad news. I said, yes, I'd managed people. They said, terrific. And then they gave me a really big team. She's like, I've got 4 weeks to learn how to be a manager. And she said, Mom, what do I read? And that was when I had the realization about the aspirational and the theoretical books. And I was thinking, like, she needs to know what to do in her first week with her boss, with her peers, with her team. And so she said, well, you just coach me, and we talked every week. We talked every week for her first few months. And I would share things with her like, here are 5 questions to ask your boss before you start so you can get the lay of the land. Here are questions to use in your first one on one with somebody on your team. Here are questions you use in your second one on one with your team, and they are different. And this is what they're going to reveal to you about each person on your team and how good they are at predicting their work outcomes. And that's the most important thing for you to figure out. So we would go back and forth. I would share tools with her, and I kept a folder. And all of a sudden, the folder was getting bigger and bigger. And I was like, this is pretty nifty. So I put the tools together into a book and sent them to 5 millennial managers around the globe and said, could you beta test this for me? And they all responded back with questions and suggested adjustments. And they caught things that were relevant to async teams and remote teams and hybrid teams, global situations. And those changes all came into the book. So the book is an amalgam of tools. And so there are a lot of templates here. So you want to run a team meeting to plan your strategy, there's a map for you. I want you to kick ass in your first year as a manager. And I want you as a leader to be able to give a resource to your folks to help them thrive. The pivot from individual contributor to manager is hard. Let's help people out.
I wish I had this book.
Me too.
Many years ago, because I was just thrown into it. And there was always this sense of fear, that you were doing something wrong. You often didn't get direct feedback or positive feedback. It was often negative criticism from leaders, but they didn't take that extra step to kind of explain how better ways of doing things, better ways of managing. That will also position you as somebody to move up the ladder, right?
A friend of mine, I saw her last night, and she said, Christine, I just reread the book again. And she runs a global organization for a very large financial company. And she said, I was reading the book and I was like, of course, I do this. And she said, but I realized I just thought it was a natural part of being a manager. And as I was reading it, I realized I learned all of these things by probably doing it wrong the first time and then made adjustments. So let's help women lead faster with
I think these kind of tools are just wonderful. They get you going and they remove some of that trepidation that you might have initially. So can you take us through some of the next level tools in the book? Give us a little preview.
Okay. One of my favorites is the team goal setting section, where it walks you through 3 or 4 questions that you can ask to figure out what the business's primary objective and key results are. And then it steps you through how do you go through the work that your team is doing and determine which work is going to support those goals, which work is operational. You build a priority list, and then you share it with your team. So that structure of how to break that down is probably, I was going to say it's my favorite tool, but these are like children. It's one of my favorite tools. Another one that I really believe in is the structured one-on-ones, and then the explanation of the questions to the manager. It is something that I learned the hard way. I thought the most important point of my one-on-ones was to build relationships. And then later, when people had performance problems, I realized that I had missed early indications of that. And so this is a terrific way to diagnose quickly who on the team is solid at work and solid at predicting their work, and who might need additional support from you, so you can carry yourself in the way that's most appropriate to each person on your team. And lastly, I built an exercise called a Goldilocks exercise, and it is 15 minutes long, and I don't care how big your team is. It is a rapid way to diagnose who on your team is too busy, just right, too light, and then rebalance work, especially when you have a team of managers reporting under you. It's a terrific way to diagnose and solve that quickly.
And what about, I guess it would also help diagnose levels of engagement among team members. Is that right?
It does. There's another section about that. I talk in the book, this is where my study in organizational behavior comes in. I talk in the book about how you can get so much out of your people when you understand what their strengths are. And if you want to raise someone's engagement, the best way to do that is to line them up to work that they're good at and they're interested in. And there are sections in the book about what questions you can ask someone that help you diagnose their strengths, and then follow-up questions that you work through with yourself as you look at their work and what you've learned from them, and you check yourself, like, are they in the right place? Because if they're in the right place, their engagement will be so high, and all of the science shows us that their output will be high as well.
Just these are just such phenomenal insights and tools that you're providing women and just people in general who really want to thrive in their first management role. And even I think it might also be very useful even for managers who are already in their roles, who want to fine tune how they lead others.
Well,
So
it's that muscle that we kind of stopped using during COVID, right? That we're
yeah,
all rebuilding again, about delivery. I have been pleasantly surprised by the reactions that I've had from groups of CEOs that I speak to who are looking for ways to help their companies come strong out of the pandemic. They're so interested in these tools and how they might be able to share them down through their organization in order to build a new level of accountability and outcomes. And long-term managers, those folks in the tech company with a big layoff, they were hungry for something that could help them with their reset. So I'm finding the same thing, Julie. It's applicability. I didn't expect the applicability to be at all levels inside of
right.
organizations.
Yeah. No, I think there
Like,
is. I think you really are hitting the nail on the head for a lot of different audiences. Christine, this has been such a vital conversation. Where can people find you?
So you can find me on my website, Deliver at Scale. You can find my books on Amazon. I would love if you would leave a review, let me know how you feel about it. And I would love to be in touch with anyone on LinkedIn. I also have a newsletter that you can find on my website. And if you follow that, I share brief, insightful, sometimes sassy guidance about the workplace in the form of Q&A from folks that I work with.
That's great. I signed up for that. Well, everyone, thank you for joining us today for Quorum Live, and I'll see you next time for another conversation.
Thanks,
Have a
Julie.
great
Thanks,
day.
Quorum.